Hi guys, thank you very much for joining me. Polina here talking to you about this beautiful new moon in Scorpio, November the 15th. And also I'd like to say a few things about the book that I've just published. It is the fourth of my almanacs. It is a very good manual. It's a very good tool for the year 2021. It is available on sale now, and it has within itself predictions for the year, for the month by the sign, and also everything that you need to know in the week, as well as all the different transits, all the different planetary alignments, all the angles and everything like that, the moons and the asteroids, and even meteor showers. So if you would like to have a look at this book, this year I have printed it as a paperback, but I also have offered it as a digital Kindle book, so as a digital copy as well. If you'd like to save the trees, yes, it's a good idea. So thank you very much for joining me. Let's talk to you about this very interesting, prolific, and perhaps slightly strange time in Scorpio. Okay, so I would like to bring in some context first. I'd like to talk a little bit about Chinese astrology and how this measures during this particular time in November 2020. Okay, so we have gone through Pig Year last year, 2019, and this was more a time of tradition and a time of softness, and a time of ego understanding what it really is and what it really needs. So that was the last sign of the Chinese zodiac, and where the ego fully fruits within its own self. So why I'm saying the ego is like self-perception, understanding who you are, understanding life through the one, so through the one concept of self. And all we had to do was basically come to terms and come to peace with our elders, with our tradition, with our culture, with where we're from, what we do, what we did, you know, what we used to like as children, what we have grown up into, and everything like that. So it was a slightly cosmic time to really reveal to yourself also the secrets within the body or within yourself that were lying dormant. So, for example, hereditary diseases and long haul questions could have been answered back then. Now we're going through red, and why this is important is because red is the first sign of the Chinese sequence, and it is the finder. It is the frisky, funky sign that basically tries to inevitably corrupt or revolt against systems and against structures. So we have a very interesting time during this particular month for it to come to a certain peak. If you have trouble with ego, if you have trouble settling down, if you have trouble concentrating, if you don't respect or don't like what you have come to deserve, if what red has found for you, because red is a scavenging sign, it's a scavenging innovative energy. If you don't really like what you have found or what you've kept around or what you have come to, it is not a very good time to rock the boat right now. We still have a few months before the golden ox year begins in February, March. We still got some time to really become strong and aware in terms of what we have been collecting. So also with the red year, sometimes innovation is huge. Sometimes there's a new language to learn, there is a new person, there is a new relationship, there is maybe a baby on the way, maybe there is a marriage or a new home. Immigration is very possible during a red year. Also trying out new things, doing completely different things than you've done before. But also it is kind of a sign of remembrance, because it all goes in a full circle at the end of the day, because some of this you kind of already knew, could foretell when you were a child. And perhaps that's how fortune telling works on some level, was already programmed into you. So maybe you already knew in your heart of hearts that during this time something like this would happen. But for some people it is not a very nice and lively time right now, because they have to come to terms with a solid fixed sign of Scorpio. And we have got to really mature and come to terms with what red has found so far, and also what we have exchanged for what else. So for example, the previous spectrum of of you was exchanged for something else. Maybe you could have jumped ship from one partner to another, maybe changed jobs, or your lifestyle has changed massively. And there is something that Red is asking for us right now, is just to be stern and soft at the same time, and to recognize what are these choices bringing us. And also we have to understand where we are not in proportion, and where our life is not yet proportionate, or it is not as good maybe or as easy as it has been, because sometimes people jump on board with new innovation, new technology, a new country or new spouse, and they don't really understand what they've had still matters, and that it could actually have been better to stay. So the thing here basically is to understand your choices. Understanding our choices is always hard. So recognizing where you are now and where you could have been is for some people very damaging to the mind or to the ego. For some people it is also very easy to corrupt their souls in a sense, or their energies, their essence, because they don't really believe in what they now have got, or they don't really trust in who they are with, or they don't breathe well, or like they don't feel emotional enough about the fact that they're living a certain way, or the fact that they're doing things a certain way. And we have to basically come to terms. So the only thing that I am feeling is important here during this time is to basically recognize in retrospect, maybe over even the span of a couple of years or even more than that, as to where you are now, how you have been led there, what you are becoming through the process of maturing, and how are you gridding your life in this epic new formation. So the new light is here, the new energy is here, the new essence has come to be. There are new ways, new thoughts, new feelings, new ideas, new dimensions that are now ready to be filled. And for a lot of this, we have signed up, and not consciously necessarily. So like some people sometimes would have found something in the right year and kept it while they shouldn't have. And that is something that should be understood as well. So sometimes people keep around things for a long time that they should never have done. And I understand that sometimes a rat year is more kind of a medley, and it's more just about we as people wishing to learn through variety and through adventure, and perhaps some kind of a new system of classification of goods, of values, of what we believe as people, where we believe we've come to be and such. Now is one of the last peaks in terms of understanding of how you're going. Okay, so how are you going as a human? Also, it's a very good time to understand your capacity for compassion, for empathy. How are you as a friend? Did this rat race during the rat year bore you off your feet? Did you want to just do everything at once? Did you perhaps not have the time to really finish your projects? Or did you kind of feel like you got mediocre results? Did you have enough sleep? Also, I talked a little bit about this before. Rat sometimes needs a burrow to rest in if it doesn't really have enough capacity or time to digest what it is learning and what it is coming across, and how fast life can really change during this time is incredible. So I'm kind of considering, because it is one of the, it's the last peak, I would say, because it is one of those very, very intense times. We probably have got to just recognize now how we did. So perhaps, there were things that you've done that you are not proud about. Perhaps there are adventures that you went on that did not bring you what you wanted, or maybe they did. Perhaps there are great prizes that you have already won. Perhaps there are really interesting people that you are very, very open to. Maybe there are new collectives and brand new ways of dealing with the public or dealing with one another, and how you treat loyalty, or how you treat marriage, or how you treat community perhaps is vastly different than what it has been for the last couple of years, since red does accelerate us. So contemplation, we're not usually comfortable with that in the West. Contemplation and resonance, and just understanding what you did. Okay, so this is something that we have to do and not put our heads in the sand. So for example, you have created a full body tattoo. Okay, so for some reason there was something inside you that really wanted to do that. And that's great. You just have to sit down and think about what you did. Also, for example, if you've moved countries, or if you have created a very, very intense relationship, or you have changed your life, or you have gotten pregnant for the first time or the second time, it doesn't matter. So the thing here is just to understand what you have manifested and to sit with it for quite a long time. Unfortunately, not many people can do that. Half my clients during this time recently have been asking basically the same thing: am I okay? Am I okay? And the thing here is basically to open to the fact that yes, there are lots of givens now. And for some people, it is true. Some of it is whisked away. It is true. I've talked a little bit about theft, as red is kind of like a thieving time for some people, or losing time. If you don't trust who you have, if you don't feel good about who you are, if you don't feel proud about what you have got in your life or who you have got in your life, sometimes it can be whisked away. So that's something that red sometimes does as well. So I talked a little bit about this back in July, about how positions that are very fortunate and formidable can be on occasion lost. So we can become off center, or maybe perhaps too judgmental or too nervous, as red does really push out that nervousness in some people, and we can lose. So we can also lose, and these positions are very quickly filled by other people. So in terms of loss, in terms of like not meaning who you are, not feeling safe, and not feeling true to what you have, and the treasures that you have, sometimes they can get lost. Right here is kind of like putting sand through a sieve and finding golden nuggets in that sand, and sometimes they can also slip away for some reason, if we lose concentration. And that is something that we have to now come to terms with. And yes, certain things can be fixed. Certain things can still be fixed, because we're in a very big alchemizing time, because um, Saturn here is conjunct Jupiter. Also, Jupiter is very, very close to Pluto. I mean, we have this conjunction, it's very, very strong, and it's balancing this interesting stretch between Venus and Mars. I think we can. Sometimes, people can help you, we can help you, we can heal you, or there's going to be some way, sometimes life plays a funny game. Especially during this time, you think you lost this person, or you think you lost this place. Oh, did you make the right move? Did you make the right choice? And then after this game is played, specifically with the parts of ego that feel shame or vulnerability for not having or not having had. And then sometimes life, as I've said, there's a trickster energy during the Scorpio time, gives you the candy anyway. It's like, it's okay, well, be nice next time. Or like, well, it still can be revived. So whatever you've lost or whatever has been taken from you can still be finally, like, secretly revived. And sometimes there are these afterthoughts or these undertows that are going to bring that person back to you, or that are going to fix it. There's not going to be perhaps any more time to do that. So right now is the best time to sit down, open your life like a map, take out those tarot cards if you like. Very interesting time for tarot cards. And just start to basically no longer reject the given. Like the given, for example, where you're living, how are you going, how's your health, how's your wealth, how is your situation, how do you feel you're doing in life, do you feel strong, do you feel weak, did you maybe have a fight, did some teeth come out during red time? And then, you have to just sit there for a little while, because some of this might be fixable and solvable right now. It is kind of about feeling a little bit of shame and jealousy and all of those feelings that sometimes it takes to actually make a move. And I know, like, sometimes you're like, but I did it out of shame, I did it out of jealousy, why did I do it? Because sometimes these very raw, rock and roll feelings have to be there to kind of salvage ourselves from certain outcomes and certain sense of giving oneself away to perhaps an unlikable or uncomfortable story. So if you've had something go missing, if you lost your loved ones, if you have found that there is some regret, or that you have perhaps poetically said stuffed it up, it's not too bad. It is not too bad. It is going to be quite okay. And with the whimsy of Rat comes a really likable character during sometimes the darkest of times. So we are going for Scorpio. We are facing eclipse season at the end of the month and in December. So we are going through kind of like a tipsy-turvy little ride. And for some people, it is joined with some very unusual or very humbling aspects or people. For certain people, it doesn't really matter which way they go from here now. And for certain people, it's crucial to sit down and have a look over your things. And what I mean over your things is just everything that has happened during the last year, and for some people also the last 5 years, even a decade, just to kind of get your head around how you are actually going. We also have the sign of maturity, Scorpio. I mean, this is one of the greatest signs to just equilibrate and try to work through some great mind, and great vision to make yourself full, and confident and open enough to be available, to fix things. Like right now, it's like, hey, sometimes something inside is knocking on the door saying, hey, we need to fix this, or like, hey, I just want you to know there is some trouble there. Anything that comes up as trouble, for example, if you have nervousness about your state of health, if you have a nervousness about your spouse, if you have a nervousness about how you're going in life, how you're creating your realities, anything at all, it is one of the best times to heed to that little voice. And sometimes if you're not open to that voice, it can become traumatic, to communicate with it, and it can be a trauma. So sometimes it's just like with children, inner children are kind of the same. Inner children will voice things and you will not want to hear until it becomes uncomfortable, So with your inner children, just understand, okay, if there is like this little knock on your door, this little, hey, I just want you to know, sometimes one of the greatest times, to understand who you are is through these little knocks when they're still gentle and kind, and not when they're deep and emotional and traumatized. So don't wait till your kid is screaming, just understand those little knocks. Same with babies, same with children. Sometimes people say, oh, my child is out of control. It's because you've been ignoring their energies for a long time and you haven't taken into consideration how they are. So that is something that I think has to happen here, like recognition of why there are large or small ideas coming to your mind, and what is this unconscious rubbish that sometimes people think, and what it actually has for you. And also for some of us, the unconscious rubbish is becoming cleansed. So maybe we don't want to listen to the same music, maybe we don't want to talk about the same things, maybe we're not participating on the same level with people and things because we value ourselves more than the distractions that we have. So distraction has a big role to play during this time. Are you or are you not distracted, or are you feverishly trying to find distraction? So this is when a person could go through movie after movie at the same time as not wishing to watch either one. And also this is when people don't really know how to take care of themselves, and then they start to basically enjoy things without even enjoying them, just like they try to conceptualize something for themselves that is just a state of escape. So the best thing here is not to escape and to try and put your life together. But for some people, if you have extra income, extra time, if you have power, if you have the voice, if you have a certain state of responsibility or an epic state of self already reached, you could gain a lot during this time. So I'll be probably needing to talk a little about this. What I mean is, for certain people, if you have surplus, if you have cracked the dollar, if you have understood what makes you important in a group, if you have now a very powerful and systemically beautiful relationship, if you have everything spick and span, as they say, if you have things entirely placed, you could do even better than that. So the thing here is, when we have a coming of age for someone, okay, this is one of those times to celebrate. So for some people, yes, Jupiter, Saturn, also Jupiter, Pluto, okay, so celebration meaning when you just go and spend some money on some beautiful garments, okay, this is when you finally treat yourself. This is when you get off your raw diet for a while to finally have that bowl of pasta, every once in a while. It's nice. Like when you get yourself together, you understand that your yoga practice has gone to a next level and you're more beautiful than ever. This is when you understand that your art is next level. This is where you understand that everything in your life is shining. And when it does, and if it has that within itself, it is one of the most beautiful times to remember where you were and where you are now. So for example, there was a time you didn't know how to speak Spanish and now you're fluent. Suddenly there's a fruition, a coming of age, where before you didn't know how to cultivate yourself. You didn't know how to work with yourself or how to hear yourself, and now that's all that you're doing. Perhaps you previously didn't know what money was or how it would find you, and now it is an easier road, and it's been a few months and you understand now that the future is bright. So all of those large sums, large sums of money, large trajectories, large concepts, large evolutions, large realizations, and large blessings are ready to be seen now if you want to. So maybe take the good and the bad into consideration, like no matter how your life is leaning right now, as it could probably just have a lean towards one or the other side. Like, I'm losing, or like, oh my gosh, like, wow, I have everything, and I never thought that by now I would already have everything, So the thing here is basically to sit down and look at both. Sometimes it's healthier to do one at a time. Like, I'm sorry for being a little clinical here. I'm sorry. But sometimes, it's like the induced night of the soul, when you sit down with a candle and some paper and some tarot cards and you go, why me? Why me? If you haven't already done this, I think that a lot of people during Scorpio season probably already had these feelings and thoughts. And then later on, you're like, yes, but I have this beautiful garden now, and like all of it is coming true. Everything is blossoming, and no matter what, I still got my friends and everything like that. So there are lots of us that will need to somehow give ourselves those both understandings of where we are as humans and how we are maturing. And I also would probably say one of the greatest things during this year specifically, as it's coming to this fixed sign and it's fruiting, is to understand your relevance and your character in the situation. Like, how are you? Like, what are the character traits that have really shown through during this month and the previous months? Like, for example, you never thought about it, but you just had absolutely no idea what anybody else was going through except for yourself. That's important to note. Or, for example, there was something missing all your life and you found it, and it was just within art or something like that, and nothing really else fits. And it's really obvious. It's kind of like the tide has gone down and here you have an exposed kind of notion of who you are, where you are as a person, and how you're going. There's also something else. I believe that for some people there's going to have to be a time when they just know the kind of person they are. They just have to, you have to know, and sometimes people They don't like that, because it's kind of like being slapped on the face. And for certain people, there's going to be no other time than now to understand, fix, or connect to their character traits, or to be proud of their character traits. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Or like resolve things and release themselves from certain dependencies, also with drugs and alcohol, and understand that you don't need a certain bashful behavior anymore. So for example, you thought you were a mean person because you were programmed like that as a child. So anything you did wrong was mean. I'm a mean person, I'm a mean person. What does a mean person do? Drink a lot. I know, I'll drink. And then maybe a mean person you became later. But here we are now, and you can just say it like, I was never really that mean. There was actually never anything that I did in my life. This is why retrospect, psychology and time to think about things is really important right now. Wait a minute, actually in my whole life I never really actually done anything mean. I just thought I was mean. Why? Because my grandma told me I was mean every day. How come? Because she was kind of mean. So here we have to basically also turn some things on their heads. For some people, for example, an idea has been passed or projection has been passed that you were very promiscuous, for example, or that you just wanted, for example, male attention all the time. But then you sit down and you think about it and you understand that you never really wanted any attention. You just didn't know what else to do with yourself, or that your siblings have programmed you like that in some way, or your family or your culture and demographic or society in the previous loop of life has programmed you like this. And it's also a very fine time to come out of closets. And it's also a very fine time to come out of previous ways of thinking and feeling. So, for example, this is a great time to understand that a whole saga of relationships with men did not work for you, that you are actually a queer person, for example. Or, for example, a whole relationship with your extended family that was based on you being a naughty or mean person because of something you said or done when you were like 12 or 14 years old, wasn't going to resolve, and that you just have to walk out of it now and be completely apart for the time being, simply because it is not going to fix itself. And also we have to understand these cunning little games that sometimes society plays, that sometimes people play with each other, that sometimes, even parents play with their kids. There are certain things that sometimes get instilled and ingrained, and we have to understand that there was no purpose in these things. So for example, if you were trained to be a certain type of person, if you had a certain expectation or projection placed on you, if you were meant to be somewhere but you were told to be somewhere else, or if you were asked to be something that you were not, and you know that now. So there has to be a realization of these types of troubles that sometimes your teenage or your child self could have had, simply because it was not well understood. And also for many people it is time to close the door with certain relationships built in the past. I believe that for some people it is good to walk out of clubs, families, unions, marriages. It is a very interesting time for divorces, but it's not just that. It's just about understanding that there are certain negative traits to people, or there is like a certain type of cycle of misbehavior or mischief that they are not going to end. And some people also during this time, if they have their head very much in the sand and they don't want to understand and acknowledge who they are, where they come from, where they're going, nothing. They don't want to acknowledge their choices or their truths and their inner children. Sometimes it is very much seen during this time, and it is just heavy. And also understanding that anything that doesn't want to see itself and doesn't want to acknowledge where it's at and what it's doing, what it's about, is sometimes very toxic, and it is not likely to help, simply as it goes around in a loop. And also, without doubt, no matter what, working out of loops, knowing that an industry is a futile industry because it works on an unsafe loop, or understanding that your family is always talking to you in a derogatory manner or fashion, and they're also stuck on a loop about who you are, who you've been, and everything like that. So anything that is loopy and cannot come out of a loop is, in a sense, has a demonic essence to it. So that is something that has to be said. All right, dark forces, angry people, or sad situations sometimes are the ones that don't have anywhere else to go. They just go in a loop, continuing in this cruel cycle. And the cycle becomes its fate, and its faith. And there are some people that work entirely in cycles. And yes, also with Jupiter approaching Saturn, it is very important to see how you are through certain cycles. So any kind of unconscious cycles. For example, I get up, I put a bun in my mouth, I drink a cup of coffee, I leave the house, I get on the train, I go to that job, I sit down, I don't want to be there. I look on Facebook for a while, I scroll through my phone, I go to the bathroom, I pretend I have to go, I sit there for 20 minutes wishing nobody would notice me. Like these types of loops. Also loops with behavior and perception, and anything that you are incredibly tired of but it's still got a hold on you. For example, I have to get married and have a child before 35. I have to. So everything like that has a very negative and very, perhaps for some people, traditionalist, but for other people, actually, when we really think about it, heartless and soulless cycle. And the reason why it is not good for us is simply because it doesn't see a way out. It keeps on playing that record, it keeps on playing that game, or you are within that same character again and again. And now is the perfect time to unveil to yourself these different types of tribes, systems, ironies, even family relationships, recreational relationships, domestic relationships, anything that are going to inevitably explode just out of going in that cycle. So anything volcanic is seen here. Why does somebody escalate? Why does somebody cry? Also, the role of the empath. The empath, who is the only one crying. Why? Is because there is a cycle and there is no tension release until the person cries. And we have to also understand this about us. The poor me logic, or the poor me character, is nothing but that, potentially like a desire or design to reflect energy, or to end, like to stab into the middle of the cycle and to collapse it. And there are lots of us that are wishing to end cycles. I mean, also like wishing to watch TV or wishing to eat a lot of food or anything like that. It's just a need to end a certain feeling. And also in terms of sensuality, unhealthy sensuality, and also in terms of addictions and anything like that, or negative barter or obsession with power. Some of the time inside of that is a need to end a cycle of hurt or depression, and it feels like a way out. So sometimes very negative behavior, very volatile, volcanic, abrupting behavior, or just negativity is a way out. And sometimes even narcissism and sarcasm and things like that seem like some of the worst things during a time like this, but they can be an attempt to finish finally a certain type of cycle or a certain type of force that cannot be otherwise understood or stopped. But I would actually suggest that with time, there is no quick fix. So we can't just, for example, turn off from a negative marriage by switching on the TV all the time. So we can't just eat the pain away. We can't just help people that we don't like in order to feel like a good person, or to abstract ourselves from our own path and things like that. There's lots and lots of ways in which we try to find a way out and we make it unsustainable. I believe that the best thing here, as I've been sort of stating in the last 2 or 3 years, is considering the demographic and the cultural and the global energy, as well as your own life. So trying to see things on a greater scale and a greater time, and also knowing what that has been for you before, what it has given to you before, what it is giving to you now. So context, time and space, appropriate proportions, like, for example, how you end a conversation, how you finish something, how you walk into this or walk out of that is very important. We have to understand the concept of our lives here. We have to, like, on a level, maybe even start again and reshuffle our cards, reshuffle our strategies. But the best way to do it is by yourself right now. And I've said before, like sometimes people can help and there is a lot of helping energy, but if you would really like to mature and get the most out of this transit and the ones coming soon, as we're going through eclipses quite soon and we're facing a golden ox year, it is better to do it by yourself, because there are times when you are supported and you are accompanied. And then there's going to be times when people just take their hands off and they'll let you dance the dance, or they let you do the do. So it's important now to get used to the idea of doing it alone, or to try and find some kind of skills or some kind of habits or ideas or lifestyle choices that could help you sustain yourself in a greater way. So thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you'd like, please check out my website. I do readings, everything like that. If you would like an almanac, they are on sale once again in paperback version and also in digital version. And the links here are for United States, because that's where most of you guys are usually from. But if you'd like to find this almanac on the UK or another site or Australian site, these are available too. So you don't have to ship it from the US if you don't live there. So yes, thank you very much. I hope that you enjoy this transit, and I look forward to seeing you again with the eclipse video for the end of the month. Thanks. Bye.